Welcome. We are so excited to have you here as a part of Southwestern's virtual admission information session. Today we will be talking about pre-medical tracks, which is so exciting. So if you were here on Saturday, we're happy to have you back again. If you weren't here on Saturday, we're happy to have you here. So please listen, ask questions of our staff in your Q&A box down below. Or our coaches, or our faculty, or our students. We're just so excited to have you as a part of this. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Maria Cuevas, who's going to take over. Thank you and enjoy.
Sorry, I had issues with my sound. So I am Dr. Maria Cuevas from the biology department, and I'm also the pre-med chair. So I want to welcome you to this session, and I want to let my team members introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Anderson. I'm the Senior Associate Director in the Center for Career and Professional Development, where we help students with the entire span of planning for, exploring, and achieving the career goals that they have. And some of those students, some students may be interested in graduate and professional school, including health professions. So along with Dr. Cuevas and other faculty and staff on campus, I do a lot of advising and programming around medical school and other health professions. So excited to be here with you today.
Anthony?
Hi, my name is Anthony Seek. I'm a senior biology major, and this fall I'll be attending UT Southwestern Medical School.
Antonio?
Hello, I'm Antonio, and sort of a doppelganger because I'm also a senior biology major going to UT Southwestern in the fall.
Excellent. So I'm going to start to give you a little bit of an overview of what our pre-med track consists of. So for students who are interested in going to medical school, dental school, or veterinary school, you can major in any major that you find an interest in. So you don't have to actually major in the sciences. As long as you have completed the prerequisites for the medical school, dental school, or veterinary school, you're good to go. So the best advice that I want to give you is study what makes you happy. Study a field that you're interested in and that brings you joy, because that will show up not only on your grades, but also on your enthusiasm as you speak about what you study at Southwestern. But here at Southwestern, I believe that we prepare our students really well to succeed in any of the health professional schools. We offer all the courses that are required to attend medical school, dental school, and veterinary school. And I know Alex will talk to you about MCAT practice exams. But besides the curricular, the academic preparation, we also have a great connection with our alumni. So we have alumni that come to Southwestern to give seminars about how they chose their profession, to give seminars about their research that they are doing. And then in those sessions, they also recruit students to participate in their laboratories during the summer. We also have information sessions about what are the things that you should be doing in your first year, what are the things that you should be doing in your second year, what are the things that you should be doing on the third year, which is the year to be prepared for applications to medical schools. In addition to that, let me look at my, we also have some scholarships. So we have 3 pre-medical scholarships that are available to our students. And those scholarships are available to students once they finish their first year. They are eligible to apply to these scholarships, and they can apply multiple times. And these scholarships are merit-based, which is also also nice to have. It not only helps with the cost of education, but it's always nice to have as part of your resume. And then I am going to let Alex tell you how we partner with her to ensure that we're offering and supporting all the needs of our students and making them competitive for acceptance to these particular schools.
Great, thank you, Maria. Definitely the process of applying competitively for any of the health profession schools, including other health professions like pharmacy or optometry, as well as the ones Dr. Cuevas mentioned, involves a combination of the right in-class experiences, the right prerequisite coursework, and a strong academic record at that coursework, along with out-of-class experiences. And the Center for Career and Professional Development works very hard to help students identify and engage in those high-impact experiences that really, most importantly, help the student figure out if they like healthcare, if it's something that they really foresee spending the time to go through all that education as well as that career, because we have all heard of healthcare. It's something we know about. We've been to the doctor. We know that they're helpful. It's prestigious. You know, they have reasonably good pay, et cetera. There's a lot of reasons why people are attracted to healthcare, but they don't necessarily or haven't necessarily had the experience to really test that critically. So gaining experience through things like shadowing with healthcare professionals, doing sometimes even a more structured internship, absolutely volunteering in clinical settings and volunteering outside of healthcare, showing professional schools that you have an ethic of care and service for other people. Those are all examples, along with being active on campus, leadership roles, et cetera, where you're going to build out the complete profile of what you need to be a successful applicant for health profession schools. So our office is very happy to help work with students. We have some really great partnerships that we have already established with our local hospital, for example, with an alumna who has a private practice clinic in the area, with an alumnus and a parent in other metro areas for summer shadowing opportunities in different health professions areas. With some local, with some hospitals in Houston, for example, to do summer research related to medicine. And so those are just a few ways, a few examples of how students are able to build out that profile. Oh, Maria, you're muted.
There we go. So I forgot to add, this past August, we were fortunate to open our new state-of-the-art science building. And within that science building, not only we have great classrooms and great laboratories, but we also have, okay, so sorry about technical difficulties.
Yes.
It's the world. So I was saying that the new science building has a pre-med center or a pre-health center where you find all kinds of materials about all the medical schools here in Texas, as well as postbachelor programs for those students who are considering a gap year, or what I like to call a bridge year between graduating from Southwestern and attending medical school. Also, they will find all kinds of information about opportunities for summer research, volunteering opportunities with our community or other organizations. So we are very excited about that, because finally we have a centralized area where all the pre-health students can find information. So now I'd like to turn it over to the students so they can tell you what their experiences have been at Southwestern, how we have supported them in reaching their goal of attending medical school, and what high impact experiences they participated in. So Antonio, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so I think what's great about Southwestern is the fact that the school is super tight-knit, where you're walking in the hallway and everyone recognizes each other. You're able to form really meaningful connections with both students and faculty. And I think that really comes across when you're applying to medical schools, because you really rely on those connections to be able to engage in high impact opportunities. So like the opportunities that I've been able to pursue here, I don't think would be the same, or at least at the same level that they would have been if I went to bigger institutions. So I'm a TA, so I've TA'd for organic chemistry and every one of the introductory biology courses that we teach here for the first year sequences. And those have been just indelible in my experience as a student and as a learner and a teacher and as an applicant too. So I can speak a lot to that when I was applying. I've also engaged in research here. So since my freshman year, the first semester, I started to work on research projects, which was unthinkable really to me at the time. But you learn the ropes really fast, make a lot of mistakes along the way. But it's been a great experience. I've worked in a couple different labs. And then I've engaged on a faculty search committee. So I've been a part of the process of actually hiring new faculty onto the biology department. And I've been able to take on leadership roles like that. And I think another huge advantage, even beyond those opportunities, is being able to seek counsel from your professors. So forming relationships with them, asking for their guidance. It really makes a difference on how you apply and the choices that you make to be strategic when you apply. Having that wisdom.
Anthony?
Hey, so kind of what my doppelganger said. We've had very similar Southwestern careers, but I've also participated in research with Dr. Maria Todd for the past 2 years. That was a great experience, and we're still working today. And then I also have TA'd for organ physiology and cell and molecular methods class that all the biology students have to take. So I've had similar experiences as Antonio. We get really close with everybody. I think we have, if I remember right, 22 graduating biology students this year. So you're going to know every single one in your major, and you're all going to be friends, and you're all going to see each other in the hallways every day. And if you're as lucky as me, you get to talk with Antonio in your research lab every day and annoy him. So, we're a really small, tight-knit community. And, I don't think a lot of people talk about the access that you get with your professors here. I can text or call at any time if I have a problem, or if I'm just stressed out about applications or I'm not feeling too high on myself. I can talk to Dr. Cuevas or Dr. Todd or Dr. Gonzalez or anybody, and they'll pick my head up and tell me it's going to be okay and you'll get in and don't have a breakdown, please. And my time here has been really good. I've also shadowed at some hospitals and done some outside volunteer work, like at the middle school that you do through your foreign language programs. And so, I think I had a pretty well-rounded application.
Good. Do we have any questions?
Awesome. So far, we do not. I'll go ahead and introduce myself since I'm sure everyone's wondering who I am. I'm Christy. I'm one of the admission counselors here, and I'll be moderating your questions. So we have this free time now to answer any live questions that you all have with the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom video. If you want to go ahead and chat some questions to us, we can answer those live. But to start off with, this is for Dr. Cuevas and Alex. If y'all wouldn't mind talking a bit more about what you feel sets Southwestern students apart in the pre-med process.
I believe that is the liberal art education and how our education is very well-rounded. So I think students have all of these different high impact experiences, opportunities that it is their choice, to participate, and that enhances their application in terms of how the connections that they made between what they're learning in the classroom and how they're applying and making connections with things they're doing outside the classroom. And besides, in addition to that, I think is also the students mentioned, the tightness of the group. They're supporting each other, and they making them do their very best. And then we have one of the best career services offices in the nation that help our students with their resumes, with interview skills, and Alex can speak to those. We also have the free Friday photos to have their professional shots taken. So Alex can talk to those in a little more detail if she wants to.
Absolutely. I would absolutely echo Dr. Cuevas and the students talking about the importance of the community, because I think it just makes all those other resources feel so much more accessible because you've heard of them, you know people who are engaging in them. Approaching a faculty or staff pre-med advisor isn't something that seems excessively daunting because we're all familiar faces to one another. I think the ability, you heard both Antonio and Anthony talk about undergraduate research and TAing, those are absolutely not the norm at every institution. And so adding all of the other components that students need to do well when competing for health professions graduate schools, being able to add research and TA kind of roles, that's pretty uncommon and really great for Southwestern students. As Dr. Cuevas mentioned, our office exists to help prepare students in going in any direction, and that is on all of the self-marketing materials, whether it's resumes or personal statements, interviewing skills. We do tons of work and practice with students. They can start as early as when they walk in the door as first years. We have a great sophomore summit called the SOAR Summit for sophomore students, a 2-day immersive experience, all things professional development. Starting this fall, we're actually offering an Exploring Majors and Careers 4-credit class, which is another opportunity to engage in students' professional development. So all of these pieces are here to support you as you explore to find out whether healthcare is the right route for you, and then absolutely to engage in all the steps that are necessary to be that competitive applicant.
I think in addition, our students are really good communicators because our classes are small. They can hide. So we are expecting them to contribute to the conversation in the classroom. They also, their team skills, working as a team is something else that they do very well, because we are expecting them to work in small groups, to present in the class, so they can communicate not only, by themselves, individually, but they also communicate when they present in groups. So they have all of these skills that they start practicing from the very first year. So it's not something that they do only on their senior year. It's as soon as they come to Southwestern, they start working on those communication skills, on those team building skills, and presentation skills that then makes them very polished when they reach their senior year.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So we have a couple of questions. A couple people asking, can someone speak more to the percentage of students that are accepted into medical school and then some of the common schools that students tend to get into?
So the average of the past 10 years is 67% of the students who applied get accepted. So that is around 2.5 times higher than the national average. The national average is around 25%. And the schools that students get accepted to, I think, I'm gonna have to put my reading glasses on. They get accepted to all the public schools here in Texas. So A&M, UT Southwestern in Dallas, Galveston, Houston, San Antonio, Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas Tech in El Paso. And for those who pursue osteopathic medicine, that would be a DO degree, they get into University of North Texas, UNT. And we have students that in the past have attended Vanderbilt University, and several of our students also go to the medical school in Arizona.
We've had students, I was looking back at, a few years worth of data because our office asks students where they go after graduation. So in addition to all of the Texas medical schools, including Baylor, the private medical school where students also go, we've had students pursue an MD at UPenn, Pennsylvania, dental school in San Antonio at the UT Health Center, an MD PhD program at Washington University in St. Louis, MD program at Case Western Reserve, vet school at Tufts University, PA school at University of North Texas. So those are just a few examples, but we have students going into many different health professions programs at schools absolutely across Texas and beyond. And some of you may know that the state legislature reserves 90% of the seats in Texas medical schools for Texas residents. So if you are a Texas resident, then a Texas medical school is often the best option for you, which is why we do see a lot of our students in Texas medical schools. And then a few do decide to go out of state, and some do so with really great funding packages that they're offered based on their significant merit.
Thank y'all. This is for Anthony and Antonio. Someone was asking to talk more about some of those connections that you've made. Possibly, can you think of any specific moments where you thought, wow, I couldn't believe I had the opportunity to do this?
Oh, I'll jump in first if that's okay. Yeah, so I think the very first moment where I that really shifted my perspective, where I had that aha moment, was probably my first year here at Southwestern. So after I was in the middle of my fall semester, so just a little baby bio major, and you know, at this point you're working in the introductory lab, so you're kind of learning like really simple things like how to pipette accurately, how to make dilutions, things like that. But I was invited just after lab once, just really spontaneously, it seemed like I was invited to engage in a research project outside of lab with our first year lab instructor. And I thought that was wild. I was like, why would you want a first year to join your lab and help you with this research project? But she ended up mentoring me throughout the year, and I learned a lot of skills in microbiology and picked up quite a few chops around the bench. But I think being able to have a professor like really mentor you and take you under your wing like that, and when you're shoulder to shoulder with someone working in a research lab and learning directly from them, I think that really speaks to how personal things can be at Southwestern and the type of connections that you can form, and the willingness of professors to reach out to you and really help you and guide you as you progress. Anthony, do you want to go?
Yeah, similar to Antonio, you know, I think my first aha moment was not when I got in the research lab, but when I was left on my own in the research lab. So, you know, you get, you know, like Antonio said, you're just a young biology major and you think you know nothing. And it's probably true. You probably don't know very much. But you get into the research lab and, you know, you spend a couple weeks and you have this amazing professor right next to you showing you how to do everything. And, you know, I get to work with endometrial cancer, so I'm working with human cells every day. And I think my first like real like this is crazy moment was when Dr. Todd left me just on my own. She's like, okay, these are your cells, you take care of them. If you want to do an experiment, you know, you figure out the concentrations you want to use. Do you have any input? So I got to, you know, have input on my own experiment, kind of make my own schedule. You know, some nights I'd be there on Sunday night because my cells were ready and I was ready to go. And I think that's really cool that you get an opportunity to run your own experiments and basically, you know, have the keys to your lab and say, go wild and do all you can.
Yeah, if I could just jump in real quick. Yeah, that's a great point too. I forgot I wanted to include, yeah. So, you know, professors here really let you take the reins on the things that you engage in. So with research, like Anthony said, we have access to the lab where we go in, we take charge of our own projects, and, you know, we really make contributions to their progress. And that's why so oftentimes Southwestern students will co-author papers with their professors. I know right now I'm working on a manuscript with the research professor that I've been working with for the last 3 years. But even with things outside of research, like when I started TAing, you know, I was selected to help teach a class, and I was just given the reins to kind of how I wanted to do it, and I was given the opportunity to be creative in how I wanted to pursue that project. And I think that makes me able to really reflect on my experience as well, and I think that made a difference when I was applying to medical school.
This question is for Dr. Cuevas. Of those 22 biology majors that are graduating this year, do you know how many are going to medical school? And if they aren't, can you talk more about what you're helping them with?
That's a great question. So right now, this year we have 25 students applying to medical school. We have 22 students applying to medical school and 3 applying to dental school. Out of those 22, I am going to say that half of them are biologists and half of them are biochemistry majors. So those are the out of top of my head what I can remember. So what we help them with is we have a committee that helps them put together their application. So we give them a packet that they need to fill out, and then we give them feedback. And the same thing with the career services, because this is a partnership. We give them feedback with the essays that they're writing. We also give them feedback about what are the strengths they need to highlight. And then we also do pre-med interviews. So all the applicants do a 30-minute interview with members of the committee where we give them feedback on their interview skills and also some advice on how to answer certain questions. So as a pre-med committee, that's what we do to help them prepare their packets to be submitted to the different schools.
And if I'm understanding the question also, Christy, are people also wondering what other routes biology students take? Was that part of the question?
Yes, and how many they apply to, type of thing.
So we have students that apply to graduate schools to pursue graduate degrees, either master's programs or PhD programs. And those programs depend on the area of interest. It was usually, it could be ecology, evolution pathway, or it could be the cell molecular pathway. We also have students that go on to physician assistant schools. We have students that enter the workforce as research assistants in laboratories, at universities or industries. Or we also have students that enter the sales because that's where they got interested in. So it's a they have other students pursue a law degree because that way they can do patent law when they go to an industry, or some of them go into pharmaceutical sales because they know how the biology behind or the chemistry behind the particular drug, so they can sell it that way. So there's many different pathways. And we help them, and both the biology faculty and career services help them discern where their strengths and what pathway they want to take, they should take.
Thank you.
I would just add to that real quick. One of the questions we were interested in was, what is one of the biggest recommendations we have for pre-health students? And I think connecting early with pre-health advisors is really critical because there's a lot of information to know and evaluate regarding health professions. And we don't expect everybody to figure that out by themselves, nor to do, to keep track of it all by themselves. And the earlier in the game that you can start inquiring and finding out about that information and testing yourself around that gives you the most opportunity to not only successfully compete for health profession schools, but also to explore those other options that are out there. As Dr. Cuevas mentioned, you can be an art major and go to medical school. You can be a biology major and be a diplomat in the foreign service, like my sister. And it really, you just don't know until you start trying things out, what direction you're going to want to go. And the earlier you do that, the more time you have.
Thank y'all. This is again for Anthony and Antonio. Can you talk about a little bit what your typical class schedule looked like and how much flexibility you had in picking some of your classes, maybe taking other classes that you're interested in?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I guess I'll go first again. So the schedules are pretty structured for pre-med students because the coursework that you have to complete, all the prerequisite courses for medical school are rigid and you have to get them done right before you can apply. So first you have to take your chemistries and biologies, then you can take organic chemistry, and then you can take upper level sciences, all which are required for medical school. So as a result, generally speaking, first year biology majors and chemistry majors and biochem, everyone that's pre-med follows a pretty identical schedule where during your first year sequence, you'll take general chemistry and biology, which is also just what's recommended for chemistry, biochem, and bio majors. In your sophomore year, you have to take organic chemistry, And then during your junior year, you have to take biochem. But beyond that, everything's pretty flexible as far as social sciences go and electives. But for those prerequisite courses, you have to go to class, right? At Southwestern, you go to class here. Because we have really small class sizes, oftentimes you're grouped together in the same class. So there's only one section of organic chemistry offered, maybe 2 sections of general chemistry, 4 for biology. But I think that's actually really advantageous because you get to know your peers really well and you're all together constantly learning from each other and off of each other. So generally there's a cohort that kind of follows each other as you go up and progress throughout your years. And I think that it's actually really beneficial because you form connections with people. So it is a bit of a rigid structure for those prerequisites, and you have some flexibility with your elective and upper level courses.
Yeah, I will piggyback off of that. It's really rigid in the first 3 years, but once you have them all done and you've applied, your senior year is wide open. You can pretty much take whatever you want. So I got to take some other classes that were outside my discipline, like art history or English classes. So if you do have some other interests, you can use that time to do that.
I think I want to also add here that the timeline for each individual is very different, right? So if you want to go to medical school right after your Southwestern, then that's when, you follow the path that Anthony and Antonio talked about. But if you are more interested in I'm going to take a bridge year, between Southwestern and medical school, then that allows you to you don't need to follow that rigid path with the first 2-3 years, because then you can spread things throughout your 4 years of medical school. So again, and this is one of the things that as pre-med advisors, we're trying to convey to our students, is that the journey is uniquely yours. And we will work with you to plan according to your interests and your timeline. You also have the opportunity to study abroad, right? Which I think is one of the great opportunities or great high impact experiences that our students can participate in. But it just requires planning, right? Which semester I'm gonna do it, what classes I'm gonna be able to transfer in. And this is where the relationship with your advisors is so important, because in partnership with your advisor, you are able to do this planning and you're able to do everything that you have on your bucket list. It's just that it takes planning. And again, the journey is uniquely yours, and we are here to help you throughout that journey.
And I would say also, as you can tell, if you are not 100% sure that you're interested in healthcare, or maybe you think you are now, but you arrive on campus and you're 2 or 3 weeks into your first semester and experiencing college courses and having a second thought, that's completely normal. And the more that you can take those early moments to start that exploration, getting to talk with physicians or other healthcare providers, even if it's a 30-minute conversation when we bring a healthcare provider to campus and you meet with them over lunch perhaps, that can be enough to help you know, yep, I do want to keep that door open. I want to keep working toward those prereqs. Or maybe realize, okay, that's a career field I had heard of, and therefore it was exciting and interesting, but there's lots of other possibilities that I just hadn't considered. There's tens of thousands of job titles out there, and most of them nobody has heard of until they really start looking into them. And it's not, as young people, we don't always know about that. So making those early connections either way will help you going in any direction you might want to go.
And our curriculum is pretty flexible. That allows students to double major. Right now I have a student in my research lab, and he's doing a business major and a biology major, and then he's minoring in health studies and minoring in something else. We have had students double major in art studio and biology. So if you have multiple interests, you can pursue those and finish on time and be happy and healthy and end up with the goal, reaching the goals that you want.
Thank you for that last addition. That answered another question that a couple people chimed in with. For the students again, can you all talk more about how you pursued some of those research projects that you were doing? Did you have to apply for it? Or did a professor approach you? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I've worked on worked in two research labs on campus. Um, in the first one, I was just working in, like I said, the introductory biology lab, and the lab instructor just approached me one day after lab. I thought I was in trouble, to be honest, but she was like, "Hey, I think you're, I think you're doing really well in lab, and I think you do well in like a research setting. And I have this project." And she presented it to me, and she asked if I wanted to help her figure this thing out that we found in lab. It was characterizing a soil isolate. And I tried not to say yes too fast. And then, we worked together, and that's just kind of how that project took off. So sometimes professors will approach students. Other times it might be the opposite. So in the research lab that I work in now, which is different than that experience, we've had students talk to us, or the research students in the lab, and the professor, and they've been interested in what we do, and they've also been incorporated in the lab that way, and they begin doing research over this semester. But a really big, and I think one of the really neat programs in Southwestern is SCOPE. It's also another way that people get interested or into research labs, and this is really neat because it's a summer-long paid research seat. So you get to apply. So there's an application process, and you get to apply to work in different research labs. And usually you rank them, and then most people are really successful, at least if not the first time, at least the second time, and they're able to work 40 hours a week for 8 weeks in a research setting, maybe with one or two other students and a professor. And the amount of information, the amount of techniques that you learn is just unbelievable during that time period. And then a lot of times students will continue to do research in subsequent summers or throughout the academic year. So I think those are the big three ones that I'm familiar with, big three ways.
Yeah, and it's not just scope for the summer. If you have a professor that you do research with, they might bring you on for the summer. Every professor may have their own, grants or funding. So like I did summer research without being in scope, just because we wanted to keep our projects going.
So you can apply, there's some professors that do an application process as well. I want to also emphasize, our labs are small, so the number of students that we can actually mentor is not very big. But I think one of the things that distinguishes Southwestern from other institutions is that all the laboratory courses that our students have to take in biology, we do not follow a cookbook approach. We all have independent projects. So even if a student doesn't have the opportunity to work in a research lab, the laboratory courses that we offer are independent projects where the students have to come up with the question, a proposal on how to answer the question, design the experiment, conduct the experiment, analyze the data, and present the data. So, and that is a semester, usually it's a semester-long project, or there may be many multiple projects within a semester. So I think that's also a big advantage that Southwestern has over other curriculums.
Thank you. You keep answering questions before I ask them. So I'm going to direct the same question over to Alex, because I know you get to see success stories in a broader sense, but what do you feel like sets Southwestern apart from other private schools of similar sizes in Texas or across the nation?
I really do think it is the whole package, just like students who are applying to health profession schools are evaluated holistically on many different factors. I don't think it's one single element that is, maybe the biggest and shiniest, but rather the whole collection of the culture of care that Southwestern has. Every single person that I have the honor of working with at Southwestern, and the students for one another as well, and for us. And so I think that shows in the different experiences that students can engage in, and how they're able to do so effectively. I mentioned a couple examples earlier beyond the borders of campus. Students are out in the community. through many student organizations. They're super active. These aren't necessarily completely unique to Southwestern, but I think it's the fact that so many of our students engage in so many of these pieces. I look at a lot of resumes and I'm tired when I do that, because our students are really involved, but they're involved in ways that count. They're not just padding their resume or writing things down. They're really active. I worked with a student applying to medical school. It's been a few years back. I mean, he got a really, really nice package, but I mean, he was a student athlete. He was a volunteer, actually worked in the ER because he earned his EMT, emergency medical technician certification, and had a job. He was also an RA on campus. He was also a research student in a lab, and multiple other things. I think he might have been in a fraternity. So, you know, our students are working really hard, and they're engaging in that whole collection of opportunities. I feel also good about schools like ours. That community extends beyond the borders of campus. So our alumni base, our parents of current students, other friends of the university, local employers, we all kind of pull together to support students through that process. So for example, we have a really great relationship with the parent of a Southwestern student who is a physician in Houston, who is a cardiothoracic surgeon. And for the last several summers, and hopefully this summer, depending on how everything goes with the whole virus thing, he will be hosting students again to do research and shadowing, and even some medical school seminars. And really, that's a fantastic summer opportunity. We have another alumnus who's a dentist, and he not only has a student come in and do shadowing and research, or kind of learn how the dental practice works, but he contributes to their experience. Actually, both of these folks do, that I mentioned, to our funded internship program, which is one of the things that isn't super common at every school. But the fact that Southwestern has this great community outside of campus who contributes funds that then students can apply for, because this takes time and energy away from perhaps a paid summer job that could help a student offset costs that they might incur. Obviously, everybody has to pay for school, not to mention living. And so this community of friends that supports students financially is also a great benefit to students here.
Thank y'all. Again, for the students, this question was asked a couple of times. What is one of your favorite labs or experiments that you've done? If you could talk more in detail about those.
Like labs, like generally speaking, like in the courses, or do you think they mean like in a research setting?
I think either or. That says experiments and labs. So whichever one you want to say is your more favorite.
Okay, got it. It's hard to pinpoint one, because I've done so many different things. I mean, students are exposed to biochemistry experiments, their molecular biology, microbiology. We do things with organ physiology. Like it's hard to pinpoint one specific experience. I think what is really neat about Southwestern, and like Dr. Cuevas touched on earlier, is all of the labs are inquiry based. So you never walk into a lab and it's, you know, you have the set of instructions and like an expected outcome. It is set up so that you're engaged in solving real questions. And so one of the cool ones that you do as a first year when you come into the first year biology sequences is you engage in the PAIR project, which is a national collective to survey soil soil ecology, so the microecology of microbes in soil. And then the data that's collected is contributed to a real national research initiative to track antibiotic resistance across the country. And I think one of the research projects that's been continued on from when I joined the first year sequences is still going. So we found a really interesting isolate that has clinically relevant levels of antibiotic resistance. And there are students that are now doing their capstones or their final senior projects about that research experience. And so everything that we do, professors bring in their real research into the labs, and you're exposed to a wide variety of different sciences. So I think that's been my first favorite one, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I like the breadth of all the experiments that we do and all the labs that we do. like for my methods class in ecology, we worked with apple snails. So I was in the lab feeding apple snails, measuring. You work in genetics, you work with Drosophila, which are fruit flies. In organ physiology, we do all of our own experiments, which is really cool in itself. We get to do it over 3 different organ systems. And so we have human participants. We'll say, you know, we're going to see how music affects reaction time, or maybe some sort of exercise affects blood pressure. And, you know, we get to run our own experiments, and that's always fun. So you're doing things in every different field that you can think of to get a kind of a feel of what you might like to do later.
That's really exciting, y'all. Another question, I guess, for Dr. Cuevas and possibly Alex, if you have any information and insight on this. But can you talk more about that bridge year and what students tend to do in between that Southwestern and medical school experience?
So some students apply for health-related jobs, and some of those are like scribes that I really introduce them to medical terminology, as well as they get to be with a physician and do and see for a whole year what they do, how they interact with patients, how they diagnose patients, and then they get to write all of that. Some students get certified as EMT, so then they work as first responders for that particular year. Some students go on to do a master's program or postbachelor programs that are out there designed to help those students bridge that year between undergrad and medical schools. So I know that, for example, UNT or in North Texas have a postbachelor program that one of my research students got accepted to too. And she did so well that, you know, when she applied to their school, to their DL school, she just went right in. So again, it depends on what the student is interested in doing. And again, we will help them figure that out, and the journey is uniquely theirs. So we want them to be happy, and we want them to make the right decisions for them.
I would just add that it's probably an increasing number of students who are spending that bridge year before going into medical school, and there's absolutely no problem or issue with that. I think graduate programs across the board, no matter what the discipline, value that additional life experience that students bring into a program when they've had time in between undergrad and grad school. That's not to say you can't go directly into medical school or other graduate programs, but it is very common, and that gives you the full 4 years then to accrue all of those undergraduate experiences, both inside and outside the classroom, if you go that approach. Working as a laboratory technician is something else that we've seen a number of students do after graduating from Southwestern before applying to medical school. But it could be a whole, you could go to the Peace Corps for 2 years and then go to medical school. You could be a health educator abroad. You could do a completely unrelated, seemingly unrelated experience. You could do service here in the States, or just get a job and pay back some of your undergraduate debt, or save up money for paying for grad school. And all of those are considered to be completely viable and valuable, showing that you're a responsible human being. And all of those are appropriate for the bridge time period between undergrad and grad school.
And when you do that, when students take that bridge year, they can apply through the committee, through Southwestern. We will help them as well at the end of that bridge year. So it's important for the students to know that. And we will help them connect that experience, those experiences they gained during that gap year, and how to make that a strength towards their medical school application.
That's an excellent point, because I'll just say that that is not something that every undergraduate student can expect from every school, that they will have the support of their career centers, of their faculty, pre-med committees, et cetera. For many students, that might be available for 1 year and then go away if it's there at all. But Southwestern has the ability and the philosophy that we're here to serve students throughout their time period and as lifelong learners. So that's really great. I enjoy that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just quick clarification on the bridge year. What type of students take the bridge year? Is it students who don't get accepted into medical school, or they just choose to kind of take a gap year?
It's all kinds. So there's students who say, I'm really tired, I need to take a mental break. So that's one kind of students. Students who did not get accepted, and then they say, okay, I need to make myself more competitive. And students that came in with that notion, I'm gonna take a bridge year when I finish because I wanna do something else. So it depends on what the goal and the journey of the particular student is.
And it's not always determined just in their final year, in the sense that, like, if they apply and they don't get in, because again, if they have a lot of diverse interests, I have an advisee who's interested in medicine, but also thinking about public health, environmental studies, animal behavior. I mean, he's got like 4 majors and minors going right now, and he's a first-year student. So in order to explore all those, he might decide to take a little longer moving through the curriculum and spread it out over the full 4 years, which would necessitate that bridge year. But he might be deciding on that right now in order to know that he wants to engage in those other experiences while he's an undergrad.
Thank you all for the clarification. Looks like we only have a couple more minutes left, and so I'll end with a student question. Someone was asking, can you talk more about a time that when you were struggling and a professor or a friend helped you and how they helped you through that tough time?
I don't think we have enough time for all of geez. Yeah, I think I've come countless times to professors, different ones, and peers a lot with a lot of times when I was struggling. I think, I don't know, at least for me, that happened a lot throughout my college experience. So having people there that I could come to, or, you know, having people in my corner really made a difference for me. But I guess for my research mentor, for the lab that I work in, I've come to him with professional issues, like navigating things like in a classroom setting, like as a TA, and like dealing with issues with students. He's helped me navigate situations where I've had problems maybe with other professors, and, you know, everything has always ended really well. But even just emotional catharsis, they've been a great, he's been a great person to have. So, and after I took my MCAT, you just feel awful. It's just this giant test, and it's just this terrible thing. And then you like do it and you feel like you bomb it. And I've definitely like cried on the lab floor to him before. It turned out fine though, I got in. And I did really well, but just having someone to be like, yeah, I know you feel that way. It's okay though. To have that foresight is really nice. But even with, you know, things that have been really personal, like I had to move really suddenly. I had some housing rearrangements that I didn't expect over the summer. And, you know, that professor reached out and was like, hey, if you need a place to stay, you can, you know, I have a spare bedroom. Like you could bunk with me if you need to until you know, get on your feet. And I think having people like that really speaks volumes to the culture of Southwestern and how willing people are to help each other here. So at countless times, all the time, I'm always talking to professors and students and stuff. So it's always helpful.
Yeah. There's been so many times. I think the third year for most people is the hardest because you're studying for the MCAT, you're taking your whole class load. For me and Antonio, we were in research labs, and I worked a job on the weekends. So there were times where I just would not sleep. I couldn't think, I couldn't do anything. I would go talk to my professors, and we would just chat for like 45 minutes, hour, just about whatever, just procrastinating on all the work that I inevitably had to do. But it made me feel so much better to know there were other people there for me, and kind of de-stress a little bit, where even though, you know, you have 8 billion things to do, you can walk around the lab and see 4 friendly faces, you know, at any time, and they'll stop and have a conversation with you. So
I think I like to add that in the biology department, we have an open door policy. So when we're in our offices, our doors are open, and students simply walked in and said, do you have a minute? And then I always have candy. Anthony keeps coming to my office to get the candy. So, you know, they sit down, they talk. It doesn't have to be about coursework. It could be about anything, because we're there to support our students. And for us, the mental, emotional health of our students is very important. So our faculty is there to support our students in whatever capacity we're able to.
Thank you so much, all of you. You were amazing. We're really grateful for your insight and answering all these questions. I know there are some questions we didn't get to. We will email responses, or I mean post responses, but we will also be reaching out to students who want to talk to current students. We will connect you with some of our students on campus. So we are now going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will be back with our Residence Life panel. Right.